So here's a very important question I want to ask you. How do you know something is the truth? When someone tells you something, how do you verify what they say? What is your burden of proof? What additional materials do you need, and from what source do you need them to come from for you to believe what people will tell you? I think you know what we're about to talk about. And I swear this last time I'm going to talk about it because I'm tired of talking about it and it's boring and the same results keep happening. But you have to talk to these conspiracy theorists, folks, because there's lots of negative effects of this, the very least of which is the fact that it's promoting ignorance and irrationality across the country. But more on that later. First off, let's talk about what constitutes actual circumstantial evidence. What makes something true and reliable? Well, it depends on the source. And if you look at a U.S. court of law, which may or may not be under control of reptilians, depending on who you ask, what constitutes something official means it has to be a government document, which means from some government agency. It has to be a police record. It has to be a military record, or it comes from an actual court jurisdiction, such as a sworn testimony. Everything else, not really that reliable. Internal memos, maybe, but how often do you get those? So there you go. Those are the 4, perhaps 5 primary evidential materials that are out there that you can say, hey, well, if it's said here, then it's probably true, or there's at least some granular truth to it. Every other source, you have to look at it as either being just hearsay or suspect or just plain, BS, or probably a mixture of all 3. So there are some conspiracy theories out there which we know are true, which aren't conspiracy theories at all because they actually happen. Things like, the business plot, Operation Northwoods, MKUltra, COINTELPRO, these all sound like conspiracy theories, but we know they're true because we have documents. We have official government documents explaining what these things are, that they existed, and that they were actually were implemented in some cases. So that's our standard. We need a burden of proof to decide whether or not something is true or whether a claim is valid. And if you don't have these documents, it's just hearsay. There's nothing behind it. You're just picking, scenes out of a video at random and saying, oh, look, this is proof. No, it's not proof. You need actual paperwork behind it from a high-up source to confirm it. And if you've ever had a government job, I had one for a while, you realize something. There's a lot of paperwork. It's a bureaucracy. There's nothing but paperwork. You can't move a pencil without someone, filing a report about it. So these things are there. So if there are major overarching conspiracies, there's probably going to be some heavy-duty documentation behind it. Which brings us to our next point. Now, there are a lot of conspiracies out there, a lot of really grandiose and pretty stupid ones. But I want to focus on one in particular because it's sort of the mother of all conspiracy theories, and it's the one that's the most popular and has the most vocal supporters. And that's the idea of this whole New World Order Illuminati super theory. And basically, if you don't know what it is, it comes down like this. It's this conspiracy that all conspiracies, or at least most of them, are perpetrated by a single entity with virtually zero official documentation behind them to prove that they exist, or that they can be correlated to any event, or that they're causing any event. And you can do your own research. It's really stupid. So anyway, there's no evidence out there that proves that this organization exists, no official documents. There are a lot of logical questions you have to ask. But no matter how much of the cockamamie nonsense that these people spit out, they always fire back with another theory, which they use as sort of a band-aid on their giant New World Order conspiracy theory. So you really can't falsify anything. They keep adding to it and building this mega, massive, gigantic, stupid thing that's impossible to refute because there's just so many dynamics. It's like, yeah, well, I can't confirm there isn't a New World Order, but I can't confirm that, the President of the United States is a jar of pickles somewhere. I can't prove that either because we don't have that information, and no one does. Why? Because there's no documentation behind it. Without documentation, forget it. It's just conjecture. It's just hearsay. Saying that the New World Order is behind all of these global conspiracies is no different than saying that the President of the United States is not Barack Obama, but a jar of pickles. Well, you can't disconfirm it, can you? There you go. That's just one of the many logical problems you have with these conspiracy theories. And my advice to people out there, if you're being harassed by these people, what you need to do is you need to start asking some questions. Some really heavy-duty questions like, who exactly is part of this conspiracy? And, when did the planning for the conspiracy begin? Why did the plans get drawn up? What do those involved conspiracy want out of it? Why do they think that a conspiracy is needed to achieve the goal? Is there another way to achieve this goal without having some global collusion? And how much money does it take necessarily to orchestrate a conspiracy that's this large? And where does the funding exactly come from? And there's lots of other questions you have to ask, like, how do you keep something as big as the NWO a secret? And why hasn't anyone defected and spoken out against the New World Order if it's a real thing? If it's this gigantic, massive global conglomerate with thousands and millions of conspirators, don't you think human nature would mean that eventually there would be a rift and someone would kind of go out there and try to, air it? Apparently not. And here's another thing. If this is a part of a giant global conspiracy, then why do we have, international problems? Wouldn't there be at some point a rival intelligence agency in one country using information about a country being part of the NWO to combat this other foreign threat? Well, maybe not. I guess it probably wouldn't, because that's just stupid. And that's not to, say that there's a lot of major contradictions with this whole NWO rabble-rousing. For example, if it's a super secretive and all-powerful organization and entity, then how come they haven't used their expansive reach that they supposedly have? And remember, these are guys that allegedly have access to all this newfangled technology that can control the weather and stuff. Why haven't they used all of their clout and their power to squelch any and all leaked information about itself? If this is an organization that is tight-knit and secretive and hard to uncover as everyone says it is, then why do we even know about it to begin with? If they control all the media conglomerates and they control the armies and all the big business players of the world, then why are there literally millions of videos on YouTube saying, hey, the Illuminati's out there and they're going to get you? Well, if they're that powerful, then why don't they just hit like the magical erase all button and get rid of all the talk of the global conspiracy theories on the planet? Doesn't seem like that would, be something that an all-powerful, omnipotent organization would do if they had the power, right? Right? Where's the logic in that? And another thing is, look at it from a domestic policy framework. Look at the U.S. and look at China. Bradley Manning, he leaked WikiLeaks, and that's just U.S. documentation, and now he's underneath a prison in Virginia. Take a look at China. All these civil dissidents like Weiwei who come out and make, these really, abrasive social messages in their art and end up disappearing for a couple of days. Okay, remember, we're just talking about single governments that are doing these things. So if you can just leak a couple of documents in the military or make a really aggressive blog post and the government comes after you, then if you're out there, spilling, all the beans about the NWO and the Illuminati and this global conspiracy, then why haven't ambassadors of this organization come after you and made you disappear and fall off the face of the earth? They're infinitely more powerful than any other government on earth, and they have as much power and clout and ill intent as all these conspiracy theorists say they do. Then why hasn't a guy like Alex Jones been captured? Why are these guys that are running around saying, oh, well, here's the thing, we know the secret. We're letting everyone know about this gigantic global collusion. Well, if they're really doing that and this entity is real, then why haven't they used their massive power to, kind of stop them? Doesn't that make sense? But then again, Alex Jones is also a guy that claims that members of the government are taking psychotropic mushrooms and going into interdimensional planes and speaking to elves that give them secret paperwork from Satan to rule the world. Actually, no, he really did say that, and I'm including a link to it in the page here. So anyway, this is part one. There's plenty of stuff we have to talk about, but just kind of give you an overview. There's not a whole lot of logic going on here, which of course is an excellent segue into the sociology of the conspiracy theorists, which we'll talk about real quick.